When I was a child, I wanted to get my first foray into entrepreneurship. And how many young people do is we start lemonade stands. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to be innovative. So I did what anyone would do in my situation. I went into my backyard and found the coolest rocks and sticks that I could find. And then I went in front of my yard and I sold these rocks and sticks. And you'd be amazed. Yes, people actually did buy some. Some of my neighbors bought them. But really, what is happening here from an entrepreneurial perspective? Well, we can start with I was talking to my customers. So I found these very cool rocks and sticks and I showed them to my mom. And she said that it was very cool. So I thought other people probably think it's cool too. So I went out and I validated this problem and the solution of people don't have cool rocks and sticks in their house. So I'm going to try to sell them cool rocks and sticks. I validated this problem with almost no money by setting up a chair. I drew on this piece of paper and just set out in front of my house. Then I pivoted as I had to. So in my case, that was realizing that although people did buy rocks and sticks, which is still baffling, they didn't buy them enough. So in my case, I went back to selling lemonade like any other kid. The reason I tell you this is that kids are great at this entrepreneurial process. Kids can do this process very well. And we're going to refer to this as this yes and thinking. For kids, they're great at very expansive thinking and understanding that anything's possible if they really put their mind to it. But they're not as good at this yes, but thinking, this refining the ideas that they have. Once we understand that, we study for years to get really good at this yes, but thinking in school. And then, as we could all expect, we become really good at yes, but thinking. But in the process, we lose the ability to expansively think and use yes and thinking. I believe that improv is the way that adults can get back to a better balance between yes and ideation and yes, but thinking. As entrepreneurs, yes and yes, but are both important. They both serve a purpose. The problem comes when we try to make them serve a different purpose than what they're naturally good at. Both of these are important and they're both required as an entrepreneur. So we'll start with yes and. In yes and, there are two common approaches that people tend to take. And I'm going to start with what I believe yes and does not mean. Yes and does not mean, yes, I agree with you and let's do it. Let's do all of those ideas. All of us as entrepreneurs, as people that have to-do lists, and even as solopreneurs, we know that we can't do everything. So that's not what yes and means. Yes and doesn't mean that we're going to actually do everything. Instead, yes and means, yes, I hear you. I appreciate what you're saying. And I'm going to even go a step further from understanding what you're saying. And I'm going to even try to add something into this idea, into this conversation. So that's the basics of what yes and can mean in ideation. Let's say you're ideating. First, just throw out 100 ideas. You have a clear problem. You're going to throw out 100 ideas, maybe even more. Every idea deserves a Post-it note, no matter if you think it's fantastic or you think that there are serious problems with it. Either way, it deserves a Post-it note because we are in a yes and mode of thinking. We're trying to figure out how we can build this up. We're not trying to figure out the problems with an idea. We're just throwing out a bunch of ideas. After we have all 100 ideas, we're going to take a look at those ideas and we're going to go, you know, I think that this one is promising and this one is promising. And in that, you may be using a little bit of your thinking that has largely been socialized into us since we've been kids, of thinking there are some serious problems with this one. So much so that it may not be worth really investigating. So out of those 100 ideas, we know that there's going to be a lot of gravel. There's going to be a lot of dirt and water that we don't need. So we get down and we end up with 5 ideas. So now we have 5 ideas that we've identified as gold. And we've identified these ideas are pretty good. Once we have these 5 ideas, we can return to the yes and thinking. We return to yes and to expand those ideas and see how could they work. And we really give each one the time and attention that a great idea deserves. Once we've done that with all 5, we take a step back and we think, now that we have really thought through how we would implement these, I think 3 of these really won't work. I don't think that they're going to work with the information that I currently have. And that's okay, because now we have 2 ideas. So now we have 2 ideas. And at this point, we can do that yes and thinking one more time and really expand it out. Once we do that, it's going to be pretty clear which idea we should go with the available information, because we've given each idea the time and attention that it deserves and real consideration. And in the end, we end up with 1 idea. Now, there are a couple benefits to doing it this way. The first one is that instead of picking the idea that looked the best on the start, using that yes, but thinking, instead of just picking up an idea and saying, that one's pretty good, we know through looking through 100 different ideas that we have truly picked the best solution with the information that we have. The other thing that is incredibly helpful that I think is often overlooked is that oftentimes in startups and in entrepreneurship, you have a fantastic idea, you implement it, and then it doesn't work. So once it doesn't work, you have to sort of go back to the drawing board. Or now you have a bunch of backups. Originally, if you just picked the best idea, the first good idea that came up, and you did it and it didn't work, you'd have to go back to the drawing board. But now you have at least 5 ideas that you think have some potential. And if you can apply the learning that you had from that first idea that didn't work to your other ideas, you now have ideas and plans that are already built up. So you're not starting from 0, and you can actually grow from there. So the answer really here is that we want to alternate between yes and yes but thinking when we're ideating. So we want to pick up as much dirt, water, minerals as we can, and then use yes but thinking and say, that's gold, we'll put that to the side. And we do that again until we have a bunch of great ideas. And then we can continue alternating until we find a truly great idea.